What's going on, everyone? So, I first started working out when I was 12 years old at a little home gym. I got my first commercial gym membership when I was 15 and have been working out consistently since then. And now here I am amidst my fifth natural bodybuilding competition prep 20 years later. In this video, I'm going to walk you through my latest gym workout and share some of the most important training approaches that I take to maximize the amount of muscle growth progress that I make during the time that I spend in the gym. Over the past 20 years of my lifting journey, I've made a lot of mistakes and have done a lot of learning. What I'm about to share with you is what I can confidently say has worked for me well in the past and is currently working well for me now amidst the massive sea of mistakes that I've made over the course of the past 20 years. Hopefully, in sharing it all with you, it helps you within your own gym workouts to maximize your own muscle growth progress. Before we get started, if you find yourself enjoying the video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. Okay, let's dive in. First up in today's session is the leg press. When doing a set of any exercise, whether that be the leg press or something like a military press, a bicep curl variation, or what have you, I ask myself a fundamental logic-based question. How can I do a set of this exercise to generate the most muscle growth stimulus possible? Simple question, yes. Yet it took me a long time before I really started to ask myself it. To answer that question, I focus on zooming in on the following four exercise approach pillars. 1, my exercise setup, or how I position myself during the exercise. 2, my exercise tempo, or how fast I move throughout each rep. 3, my range of motion, which refers to the extent I lengthen and shorten my target muscles during each exercise rep. And 4, my level of intensiveness, which refers to how hard I push the set, like how close to failure I train to. To make an exercise set generate as much muscle growth stimulus as possible, it's a matter of aligning those four pillars in the way that best leads to that end. Again, it's a pretty simple concept, but honestly, it's something that took me a long time to figure out. For the leg press, my setup involves setting the backrest position as high as the machine will allow. Since I'm trying to predominantly hit my quads more than my glutes, I place my feet low down on the platform. As far as my foot width goes, I place my feet about shoulder width apart, simply because that's what allows me to move most comfortably across my ankles, knees, and hips, so my joints. And as I'm moving, I intentionally allow my knees to move apart to allow me to accomplish maximal depth at the bottom of each rep. The exercise tempo that I've found leads me to the best mind-muscle connection and probably the most muscle growth stimulus is to move on the slower side on the way down, pause at the bottom of each rep for a second, and then move up more explosively without much of a pause at the top if possible. My target range of motion is pretty simple. I move as deep as is humanly possible. Do you need to move as deep as I'm moving here to build lots of muscle? Well, maybe not. There are lots of people with great quads who don't seem to move with this much depth. But I found it's worked really well for me. And lastly, as far as my level of intensiveness goes, I am to simply do as many reps as possible. There's no shortage of videos online about what's best as far as should you train to failure or not. Honestly, the progress I've made has exclusively come from training as close to failure as I can. So I can at least say from my own experience that that has worked very well, at least for me. Leg curls are up next. My setup for these is pretty straightforward. On this machine, the only thing I can adjust is how far up or down the pad sits on the back of my ankle or calf. I make sure to set it in the dip between where my ankle just meets my calf. If I set it too high, I can move with more weight with that shorter leverage, but it would negatively impact my range of motion in doing so I don't like that. If I set it too low, then it just feels like my feet don't have a good grip on the pad, and I definitely don't like that. My tempo is similar to that of the leg press. I move slower and more controlled on the way down with a slight pause in the bottom position, and then move up more explosively without much of a pause at the top. Both my range of motion and intensiveness are similar as well. As far as my range of motion goes, I move simply as much as the machine will allow me to. And as far as my intensiveness goes, I try to do just as many reps as possible. But unlike the leg press, once I can no longer do any more full range of motion reps at the end of the set, I finish by doing as many partial reps as possible. Usually that's just a few of them. Basically, I stop the set only once I get to the point where I basically can't move another inch. Lat prayers are next. You might have noticed a pattern thus far between the leg press and the leg curls. When it comes to 3 of the 4 exercise approach pillars, rep tempo, range of motion, and intensiveness, they were the same. And for the most part, I found that keeping those 3 of 4 pillars the same for pretty much every exercise is how to generate the most muscle growth stimulus possible, with maybe some slight variances between certain movements. The most prominent difference between exercises is going to be the exercise setup naturally, since different exercises warrant different setups. But even with the exercise setup, I check off a set of, let's call sub-pillars that carries over to every exercise. Those sub-pillars being, does my setup leave my joints, tendons, and ligaments feeling comfortable? Does it allow me to move with the biggest range of motion possible? Does it leave my body in the most stable position possible? In regard to that last point, maximizing stability is super important. The more stable the body is, the more force it will produce. And if it can produce more force, it has the potential to generate more muscle growth stimulus. So we definitely want that. For these lat prayers, I've been preferring to use the rope since it's been leaving me with the best mind-muscle connection and has been most comfortable on my wrists. A straight bar or easy bar attachment can work great with them too, though. My rep tempo is slow on the way up and faster on the way down, yet still very controlled. And I like to include pauses both on the bottom and the top of each rep. As far as my range of motion goes, I allow my arms to fully extend at the top of each rep where I can feel my lats really stretch out. However, I intentionally do not bring the attachment to where it meets my legs for a full contraction. I actually feel more overall tension when I bring the attachment to where it's around a foot in front of my legs or my torso even. With that range of motion, in combination with my very controlled tempo, I feel like tension settles the best on my lats. And that's another key principle worth mentioning. I make sure the 4 exercise approach pillars leave me where tension has maximally settled on my target muscles. If tension has settled where I want it, then there's a good chance that that muscle is getting a great stimulus. And lastly, as far as my intensiveness goes, I simply do as many reps as possible. Similar to the leg curls, I finish the set only when I can't even do another partial. Military press is up next. Compared to the exercises before this one, I'm lifting heavier relative to what my 1 rep max is. For the exercises prior, I was lifting between the 12 to 25 rep range, but for this, I'm lifting between 5 to 6 reps per set. This has been one of those big areas of debate online, I know. What's better, high reps with lighter weight or low reps with heavier weight for building muscle? From my experience, the answer is both are great for muscle growth, as long as your exercise setup, rep tempo, range of motion, and intensiveness are all appropriate. That said, there are some contexts where certain exercises could be best performed for lower or higher rep ranges, but I'm not going to get into the details of that in this video. As far as my setup goes with these, I grab the barbell where my hands are just outside of shoulder width. And as I move the weight up and down, I intentionally allow my thoracic spine to extend back and forward to allow me to move with a proper range of motion. As far as my tempo goes, I'm moving a bit slower on the way down and as explosively as possible on the way up. You'll notice that I'm not actually moving that fast on the way up though, most noticeably at the end of the set, simply because the load is just too heavy to literally move fast. For my range of motion, I start each rep where the barbell touches my clavicle area or upper chest area, and end the rep where my arms are completely locked out and above my head. As far as my intensiveness goes, I do as many reps as I can get away with. Simple but effective. Flat dumbbell bench press is up next. Training my pecs effectively has taken me a long time to really figure out. As a younger lifter, I was plagued by the ego bug. My approach was simple, but not effective. Regardless of if I was doing a barbell, dumbbell, machine, or cable exercise, I would aim to lift simply as heavy as possible by whatever means possible. Unfortunately, whatever means possible usually meant lifting with what I would now call very suspicious technique. It was mainly my range of motion rep tempo that suffered. I would cut my range of motion way too short, to the point of seldom doing any real deep reps where my muscles could ever fully lengthen and stretch. And I would move without much attention to my rep tempo, often moving too fast and without good control. And I wondered why I had so much trouble growing my pecs. Jeez Louise. Fortunately, I eventually figured it out. Once I was healed of the ego bug, I started to lift with appropriately heavy weights and began moving with a full range of motion and a controlled tempo to a close proximity of failure, basically training to do as many reps as possible. And my goodness, that was it. That was the key. Machine preacher curls are next. One of the key principles I learned when it comes to effectively growing my biceps is similar to what I learned with training my pecs. Put the ego bug aside. Prioritize training super hard, yes, but ensure that in doing so, technique is good and tension is completely settled on the biceps. I definitely was guilty of throwing around weights that were way too heavy. I'm talking about swinging around 65 to 70 pound dumbbells doing hammer curls. I thought I looked cool, but I sure wasn't building as much muscle as I could have been. Not to mention I didn't actually look as cool as I thought I did. I've learned that for me, moving with a very controlled tempo, especially moving slow and whilst feeling tension on my biceps as I move down, makes a heck of a difference compared to just swinging big weights around. And moving with a range of motion that's full, yet emphasizes the lengthened portion of the rep or the bottom half of a rep, it really hits hard. And yep, as far as intensiveness goes, I do as many reps as possible. That really does it for me. And last are these overhead cable tricep extensions. Take all of the principles I mentioned throughout this workout, all of the exercises prior to this, and apply them to this exercise. You can use a variety of different attachments for this, like a straight bar, but I prefer the rope since it feels best on my wrists and elbows. I move with tons of control. I move slow on the way down with a pause at the bottom and move faster yet still smoothly on the way up. I move as low as I possibly can at the bottom of each rep where I can feel a big old stretch across my triceps. Yet I don't quite fully lock out at the top of each rep, nor do I pause there. And then I simply just aim to do as many reps as possible as far as my intensiveness goes. And that does it. And that's the workout. So if there were a couple of big takeaways that you could bring from this video to help with maximizing your muscle growth progress, it would be to first start by asking yourself the question, how can I perform each of my exercise sets in the way that maximizes the amount of muscle growth stimulus that my target muscle or muscles experience? And then from there, aim to find the perfect combination of my 4 exercise approach pillars. So your exercise setup, your rep tempo, range of motion, and exercise intensiveness. Again, it's super simple, but even so, I know that for me, it took me a long time to figure that stuff out. Hopefully in sharing it with you, it helps accelerate the rate in which you build muscle for yourself. At this point, I'd love to hear from you. Did you find the content of this video helpful? Is there anything that you found to be particularly helpful within your own gym workouts that have led you to maximizing your own muscle growth progress? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Before this video comes to a close, I wanted to quickly let you know about the work that I do. When I'm not making YouTube videos, recording podcast episodes, or making Instagram content, I work full-time as an online physique coach, where I help my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition. And I coach them through the process. I've been doing this work for over 7 years and love helping my clients to not only transform their bodies, but ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, feel free to hit the link in the description below, where you can learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how it can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.